Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's return to our main character. The story begins on a quiet Monday morning, when the city was barely awake and the sky hung low with a pale gray stillness. Mia Turner stood on the cracked sidewalk outside a courthouse in downtown Phoenix, clutching the frayed strap of her thrift store purse as if it were the last solid thing in her life. Her breath puffed out in nervous clouds despite the desert warmth, because terror doesn't care about weather. It lives under your skin. She kept rereading the message on her cracked phone screen, the one she'd received just an hour ago. I can pay for your mother's surgery. Meet me at the courthouse. Adrian Hale. A name she had only heard whispered around the hotel where she worked housekeeping shifts, always with awe, envy, or fear. CEO of Hale Dynamics. Billionaire. Untouchable. Completely out of her universe. And yet, for reasons she couldn't comprehend, he wanted her here. Mia wiped her palms on her jeans. She hadn't slept in 2 days. Not since the hospital told her the cost of her mother's procedure. Not since the landlord slid the eviction notice under her door. Not since her manager cut her hours again. Her world was caving in fast. The heavy courthouse doors swung open with a hush of cool air, and Adrian Hale stepped out, dressed in a charcoal suit that fit him like the city itself had been tailored around him. Broad shoulders, controlled expression, eyes a sharp winter blue. He looked like a man who didn't know the meaning of the word struggle. He wasn't alone. His attorney trailed behind him, tapping a pen against a thick folder. Adrian stopped in front of Mia, studying her the way someone studies a contract, precise, detached, assessing risk. "Miss Turner," he said, voice low, polished, businesslike. "You came." "I didn't know if I should," she whispered. "You didn't give me any details." "You need help," he replied. "I need a solution." He handed the attorney's folder to her. Mia opened it with trembling fingers. Inside, a marriage contract. Legally binding. Immediate. "This is a mistake," she breathed. "You don't even know me." "Why would you?" "Because," Adrian interrupted calmly. "I require a temporary spouse. 7 days. No intimacy. No obligations except confidentiality and appearances. You'll be compensated, and your mother will receive the surgery today." Her heart hammered, so hard she felt dizzy. "You want me to marry you?" "It's a contract," he said, each word deliberate. "Nothing more." Mia almost laughed, an exhausted, broken sound. This had to be a prank. A test. A cruel joke played by the universe. But then he stepped closer, his expression unreadable, and said quietly, "You're running out of time, Mia." He wasn't wrong. She swallowed hard. Images flooded her mind. Her mother's weak smile in the hospital bed, the eviction notice taped to her apartment door, the empty fridge, the unpaid bills stacked like gravestones. Her voice cracked. "Why me?" A flicker of something, pain, memory, crossed his features, gone too fast to identify. "Because you have nothing to gain except survival," he said. "And that makes you the safest choice." Safe. The word tasted bitter. "And after 7 days? We dissolve the marriage," Adrian said. "Clean. Quiet. You walk away financially secure." She looked down at the contract again. 7 days could save her mother's life. 7 days could ruin hers. "Mia," he said softly, almost gently. "Decide." The wind tugged at her hair. A siren wailed somewhere far off, and her pulse thudded like a warning drum. But when she finally nodded, it wasn't courage that pushed her, it was desperation. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll do it." A muscle in Adrian's jaw tightened. "Follow me. We're signing now." And just like that, Mia Turner stepped into a courthouse not as herself, but as the woman who agreed to marry a billionaire stranger for 7 days, unaware that by day 7, he would discover something that would change everything. The courthouse hallway still echoed through Mia's mind long after the signatures were done, long after the attorney closed the folder with a decisive snap. The moment she stepped outside with Adrian, sunlight hit her face too brightly, as if the world had no idea her life had just been rewritten in ink. A brand new wedding band, silver and cold, sat on her finger like A reminder she was living someone else's story. Adrian walked slightly ahead of her, purposeful, unfazed, as if escorting a temporary wife out of a courthouse was simply another meeting on his schedule. The black SUV waiting at the curb hummed like a beast. The driver stepped out, opened the rear door, and nodded respectfully to Adrian. Mia hesitated before sliding into the leather seat, the interior smelling faintly of cedar and something expensive she could not name. Adrian joined her, closing the door with a soft thud that seemed to seal her fate. For a moment, neither spoke. The city blurred past the windows as the SUV merged into traffic. Mia swallowed. So, we are actually married. Her voice sounded smaller than she meant it to. Adrian kept his gaze on the road ahead. Legally, yes. Functionally, it changes nothing. You will have a private room in the penthouse. You will follow the terms we agreed on. In 7 days, this will be resolved. Resolved. Like she was a problem to eliminate. Mia's fingers fidgeted with the strap of her purse. You said this benefits you. I do not understand why. You could have chosen anyone. Adrian's jaw tightened slightly. Anyone else comes with complications. Motivations. Ambitions. His eyes flicked to her briefly. You come with survival. That makes you clean. Clean. The word stung, not because it was cruel, but because it was true. She had nothing. No leverage. No power. No hidden agenda. Only desperation. The SUV turned into an underground garage beneath a towering building of glass and steel. Hill Tower. She had seen photos of it online, a landmark in the Phoenix skyline, a place she would never have stepped into if life had not pushed her to the edge. The elevator opened directly into the penthouse, revealing a vast open space washed in soft natural light. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the city stretching endlessly, tiny cars crawling like insects below. Everything was polished, minimalist, impossibly quiet. Mia felt her chest tighten. She did not belong here. Your room is down the hall, Adrian said, gesturing without looking. Angela, the housekeeper, comes daily. If you need anything, ask her, not me. The distance in his tone was colder than the ring on her finger. Mia nodded, unsure where to put her hands, where to stand, how to breathe in a place that felt more museum than home. Adrian loosened his tie, the first human gesture she had seen from him, and walked toward his office. But before he disappeared behind the sliding door, he paused. Your mother's procedure is being scheduled as we speak. You will get confirmation in an hour. Mia froze. Her breath hitched. Thank you, she whispered, her voice breaking despite trying to hold it steady. Adrian did not turn. This is a transaction, Mia, not gratitude. The door closed behind him. The words sank like stones in her stomach. Transaction. Not gratitude. But her mother might live because of this. That reality anchored her trembling legs as she moved through the penthouse, touching nothing, afraid anything she brushed against might shatter or reveal she was an intruder. In her room, she placed her purse on the bed, the fabric instantly looking out of place against the crisp white duvet. Her phone buzzed. A message from the hospital. Procedure approved. Preparing for surgery later today. Mia pressed a hand to her mouth, tears welling. She sank onto the edge of the bed, breathing in shaky bursts. 7 days of pretending. 7 days of walking on glass. 7 days of being the wife of a man who felt carved from ice. She had no idea that in those same 7 days, he would discover something about her that would shake the foundations of everything he believed. And that discovery had already begun, even if Adrian Hale did not realize it yet. The next morning began long before the sun rose over Phoenix, but Mia had barely slept at all. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her mother's hospital room, the signature she placed on the marriage contract, and the unreadable look on Adrian's face when he told her gratitude was unnecessary. When her phone finally buzzed again at 6:30 in the morning with an update from the hospital, saying her mother's surgery had gone smoothly and she was resting, Mia let out a breath she did not realize she had been holding. Relief washed over her so intensely that her hands trembled. She whispered a thank you into the quiet of her room, even though no one could hear her. The penthouse outside her door was silent, the kind of silence that felt structured and deliberate. She walked down the hallway carefully, afraid her footsteps might echo too loudly in a home that did not feel like hers. In the kitchen, the housekeeper Angela was placing fruit into a glass bowl. Angela offered her a warm, genuine smile that instantly eased some of the tightness in Mia's chest. Good morning, Mrs. Hale, Angela said. Mia nearly choked on air. Oh, I am not. I mean, yes, I guess I am. But you can just call me Mia. Angela laughed softly. You may be new here, but that does not change the title on the marriage certificate. Mia flushed, unsure what to say. Adrian entered the kitchen a moment later, crisp and polished in a dark suit, as if he had never slept at all. He glanced at Mia, not with warmth, but with a measured neutrality she could not read. You should eat, he said simply. You have a hospital visit to make, and we have an event to attend this evening. Mia blinked. An event? A corporate dinner, Adrian replied. It is part of the arrangement. Appearances matter. The reminder of their contract hit her like cold water. Angela placed a plate in front of Mia with gentle care, and Mia murmured a thank you. When she looked up, Adrian was watching her, but the moment she met his eyes, he looked away quickly, as if catching himself in something he did not intend. They left for the hospital shortly afterward in the same black SUV. Mia sat quietly, twisting her fingers together as they cut through the morning traffic. When they arrived, she hurried inside, grateful Adrian stayed behind to take a call, giving her the space to breathe. Her mother was awake, groggy, but smiling weakly. When she saw Mia, her eyes filled with tears. How did you afford this? Her mother whispered. Mia froze. She could not tell the truth. She was not ready for that conversation, not ready for the shock, the judgment, the disbelief. I found help, Mia said softly. For now, just focus on getting better. Her mother squeezed her hand with a strength that startled her, and Mia stayed for an hour before stepping back outside. She found Adrian leaning against the SUV, deep in conversation with someone on the phone. His tone was low, controlled, but edged with tension. When he ended the call, she felt compelled to ask, Is everything all right? He paused, studying her face, and for a split second the ice in his expression cracked enough for something human to slip through. It will be handled, he said. It was not an answer, but it was all he offered. That evening, Adrian handed her a simple black dress that fit her perfectly even though she had never been measured. She wondered how he knew her size, but did not dare ask. At the corporate dinner, cameras flashed the moment they entered. Whispers swept across the room like wind. Mia felt the weight of every stare, every judgment, every assumption. A board member's wife leaned toward another guest and whispered loudly enough to be heard. She looks like she walked in off the street. Mia's face burned, but before she could shrink back, Adrian stepped closer, placing a light but unmistakable hand at the small of her back. His voice was calm but carried enough authority to silence the entire table. This is my wife, he said, and she belongs anywhere I am. For the first time, Mia realized Adrian Hale was not merely protecting an image. He was protecting her, and he did not even seem aware he was doing it. The room fell into an uneasy hush after Adrian's words, and for a brief moment Mia felt something she had not felt in days, the sense that she was not completely invisible. But the feeling faded as quickly as it came, replaced by the familiar unease of being surrounded by wealth that shimmered like glass and cut just as easily. The dinner continued, filled with clinking silverware and elegant dishes she could barely pronounce. She sat beside Adrian, careful with every move, every breath, afraid that one wrong gesture would reveal just how far from this world she truly was. Across the table, Evelyn Hale, Adrian's cousin and the company's chief financial officer, watched her with a smile that was polite on the surface but sharp underneath. Adrian, Evelyn said sweetly, I did not realize you were capable of such impulsive decisions. Adrian lifted his gaze slowly. It is not impulsive. Evelyn's eyes briefly flicked to Mia, lingering with pointed interest. Of course, marriage decisions never are. The insinuation hung between them like smoke. Mia pretended not to hear it, but the sting settled deep beneath her ribs. As the dinner ended, Adrian guided her toward the exit. His hand rested lightly against her back, not enough to imply affection, but enough to steady her when her heels wobbled on the marble floor. Outside, the night air was cooler than she expected, and she drew a careful breath as they walked toward the waiting SUV. Once inside, the silence between them stretched taut until Mia finally whispered, You did not have to say all of that back there. Adrian looked at her, his expression unreadable in the dim glow of the streetlights passing through the windows. I said what was necessary, he replied. You are my wife for these 7 days. Anyone who challenges that challenges me. She nodded slowly, unsure whether to feel grateful or uneasy. Loyalty from him was always calculated, never tender. When they returned to the penthouse, Mia stepped out of the elevator feeling exhausted in ways she could not name. Adrian loosened his tie as they entered the living room, the city lights flickering across his sharp features like fragments of a life she would never fully understand. She hesitated before speaking. "My mother is stable," she said softly. "The doctor said she should wake up more alert tomorrow. I wanted you to know." Adrian paused. For a moment, something softened in his eyes, something that almost resembled relief. "Good," he said quietly, and the sincerity in that single word startled her more than anything he had done all day. He turned to leave, but before he disappeared into his office he stopped again, as if wrestling with a thought. "You handled yourself well tonight," he said without looking back. Considering the circumstances, it was not flowery praise, but coming from Adrian Hale, it felt enormous. Mia exhaled shakily after he left, sinking onto the couch. She stared out at the endless sprawl of Phoenix, wondering how her life had become so unrecognizable in just 2 days. Later that night, unable to sleep, she wandered into the kitchen for water and nearly jumped when she saw Adrian already there, sleeves rolled up, reading something on his tablet. He glanced up. "You are awake." "I could not sleep," she admitted. He nodded slightly, as if he understood more than he let on. "Sit," he said, gesturing to the stool across from him. His tone was not commanding this time. It was an invitation, quiet and unexpected. Mia sat, folding her hands to hide their nervous tremble. "Earlier," Adrian said, "Evelyn crossed a line. She has been testing boundaries for months, waiting for an opportunity to undermine me. Our marriage, even temporary, gives her ammunition. You need to be cautious around her." Mia felt a chill trace her spine. "Why would she want to undermine you?" Adrian's expression darkened. "Ambition," he said. "Our family company has been her target for a long time. She wants control, and she is not above using people to get it." The pieces began connecting in Mia's mind. The whispers, the judgmental stares, the tension woven into every interaction at dinner. Someone like Evelyn did not see Mia as a threat, but as a tool to exploit. "I do not want to make trouble for you," Mia said quietly. Adrian's gaze held hers longer than expected. "You are not the problem," he replied. "People who assume they know your worth are." The words lingered, warm in a way she could not explain. He stood, closing his tablet. "Get some rest. Tomorrow will be more demanding." She nodded, watching him disappear down the hallway. As Mia returned to her room, her heartbeat steadied with a strange new rhythm, one that told her this arrangement was becoming more complicated than either of them had planned. And somewhere deep inside, she sensed that Adrian Hale, for all his discipline and distance, was unraveling in ways he did not yet see. The following morning arrived with a thin layer of golden sunlight spilling through the penthouse windows, but Mia felt none of its warmth. She woke with a tight sensation in her chest, the weight of the previous evening's revelations lingering heavily in her mind. She dressed carefully, choosing a simple outfit from the limited clothing she had brought with her, then stepped into the hallway where the faint scent of brewed coffee drifted through the air. She found Adrian in the kitchen, already dressed for work, his posture straight and controlled as he read through messages on his phone. He looked up briefly when he sensed her presence. "Good morning," he said, voice even. "We have a full day ahead." Mia offered a small nod, grateful he had chosen a neutral tone rather than the cold sharpness he often used. Angela served breakfast, and Mia forced herself to eat, even though nerves twisted in her stomach. Adrian watched her with a thoughtful expression she could not decipher, as if he was trying to understand something about her, but did not know where to begin. When they arrived at Hale Tower, the lobby felt even more intimidating than before. The marble floors gleamed, the employees moved briskly in tailored outfits, and every head turned the moment they entered. This time, however, the attention was sharper, more curious, and a few faces held thinly veiled judgment. Mia stayed close to Adrian as they entered the private elevator. As the doors closed, he spoke without looking at her. "You may hear things today. Rumors spread fast here, and people will try to test your reactions." Mia swallowed hard. "What kind of rumors?" Adrian's jaw tightened slightly. "Evelyn began circulating questions about our marriage last night. Some people believe you have ulterior motives." Others think I have lost my judgment. The elevator dinged softly, but before the doors opened he turned to her, his gaze steady. Do not let them dictate your worth. The words hit her unexpectedly deep. She nodded, and they stepped into a sleek corridor lined with glass offices. Adrian led her to a conference room where several department heads were gathered. The conversations halted the moment they entered. Evelyn was there, seated elegantly near the head of the table, her smile polite but her eyes calculating. Adrian, she said smoothly, we were just discussing the upcoming charity initiative. How lovely that your wife could join us. Mia felt the weight of the room shift toward her, dozens of assumptions sliding into place like invisible chains. Adrian's voice remained calm. She is here as my partner. Continue. Evelyn stood and clicked through a presentation about the company's involvement in a charity event, but every few sentences, she slipped in subtle jabs directed at Mia. Some people understand the responsibilities that come with representing Hale Dynamics. Others are still learning. Public reputation is delicate. One wrong move can damage years of work. Not everyone is cut out for this world. Each comment struck Mia like a quiet slap, but she kept her posture straight, refusing to shrink. Adrian noticed. His gaze hardened slightly with every remark Evelyn made. When the meeting ended, he guided Mia out with a controlled calm that made Evelyn's smile tighten. Once they reached his office, Mia finally exhaled a breath she did not know she had been holding. I am sorry if I caused trouble, she murmured. Adrian closed the door behind them and turned to face her. You did not cause anything. Evelyn did. She knows exactly what she is doing. Mia looked down at her hands. Maybe she is right. I do not fit in here. Adrian stepped closer, his voice lower, carrying a weight she had not heard before. Fitting in is irrelevant. Authenticity is what matters. Do not undermine yourself. She met his gaze, startled by the sincerity in his tone. There was no coldness now, no distance, only a quiet conviction that made her pulse jump. Before either of them could speak again, there was a knock at the door. One of Adrian's assistants stepped inside nervously. Sir, there is something you need to see. It is about Mrs. Hale. Mia felt her stomach drop as the assistant handed Adrian a tablet. Adrian's expression darkened as he read the headline on the screen. Someone had leaked a photo of Mia entering the penthouse, paired with a headline implying she was a gold digger who married into wealth for personal gain. The assistant swallowed hard. It is spreading fast, sir. Adrian's eyes lifted slowly, and his voice was no longer calm. It was cold with controlled fury. Find out who published this. Mia's heart pounded as she stared at the screen. She did not know it yet, but this was the first spark of a fire that would expose the true enemy lurking in Adrian Hale's world, and pull her deeper into a war she never asked to fight. The moment Adrian saw the headline, a heavy silence filled the office, thick enough that Mia could hear her own pulse thudding in her ears. The smear article showed an unflattering snapshot of her entering the penthouse with a headline calling her a gold digger, a manipulator, and a fraud who seduced a billionaire for money. The assistant lingered awkwardly before excusing himself, leaving Mia and Adrian alone in a room that suddenly felt smaller than before. Mia's throat tightened as she watched Adrian's expression sharpen, every line of his face carved with controlled fury. This is not true, she said softly, her voice trembling despite her effort to keep it steady. Adrian looked up, his eyes meeting hers with a mixture of anger and something else she could not quite name. I know it is not true, he said, his voice low and deliberate. The problem is that perception spreads faster than truth. He set the tablet down with a force that made the desk vibrate slightly. Someone wants to destroy your reputation to get to me. Mia felt her stomach twist. Evelyn. Adrian's jaw clenched. That is one possibility. But the way he said it carried a certainty that told her Evelyn was more than a possibility. She was the primary suspect. He reached for the phone, contacting the internal security team, giving brisk orders for a full investigation into the leak. Mia stood frozen, guilt creeping under her skin like cold water. I did not mean to become a problem for you, she whispered. Adrian turned to her sharply. You are not the problem. The people attacking you are the problem. Do not confuse the two. Her breath hitched, and before she could respond, the door opened again. This time it was Marcus, Adrian's head of security, a tall man with broad shoulders and a stern expression. Sir, we traced the original upload. It came from inside the company network. Mia felt the room spin slightly. Adrian's voice became steel. Who? Marcus hesitated. The account traces back to an office on the executive floor. Specifically, Chief Financial Officer Evelyn Hale's assistant. The confirmation hit Mia like a blow she had expected, but still feared. Adrian's eyes narrowed with a dangerous calm. Bring me everything. Every file. Every message. I want nothing hidden. Marcus nodded and left promptly. Adrian looked back at Mia, and for the first time since their arrangement began, there was no distance in his expression, no coldness, no calculated neutrality. Instead, there was something protective, something fierce. You are coming with me, he said. Without explaining further, he guided her out of the office and toward the elevator. They descended to a lower floor where the company's communications team was stationed. As they entered the room, several employees straightened nervously. This is Mrs. Hale, Adrian said firmly, his voice filling the space. There will be no discussion of the article. No assumptions. No gossip. Anyone caught spreading misinformation will be dismissed immediately. All eyes widened. Some nodded, others looked pale. Mia felt the urge to shrink back, but Adrian's presence beside her was anchoring. After the meeting, he escorted her to a private lounge used by executives. He motioned for her to sit on a leather sofa while he remained standing, running a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration she had rarely seen from him. I know this is overwhelming, he said quietly, but you need to understand that being tied to me, even temporarily, makes you a target for people who think they deserve what I have. Mia looked up at him, her voice barely above a whisper. I never wanted to be in anyone's way. I never wanted to cause damage. Adrian exhaled, and for the first time, there was a hint of softness in his tone. You did not cause any of this. This is the cost of power. My mistake was assuming it would not touch you. She swallowed hard, absorbing his words. What happens now? Adrian's eyes darkened with determination. Now, he said, I protect what is mine. And for these 7 days, Mia, that includes you. She felt a warmth spread through her chest, confusing and sudden, as his words settled deeper than she intended them to. What she did not know was that this moment, this shift in his voice, was the first sign that their contract was beginning to blur into something real, and neither of them could stop it. The hours that followed unfolded with a tense quiet that clung to every corridor of Hale Tower. The investigation into the leaked article continued behind closed doors, while whispers tried to creep through the walls. Adrian kept Mia close, not out of obligation, but out of an instinctive protectiveness that neither of them dared to name. As they returned to the penthouse that evening, the city lights glittered below like shattered stars, and Mia felt the weight of the day sink deeper into her bones. She stepped out of the elevator first, but when Adrian followed, she noticed something different in his expression. The rigid mask he usually wore had softened, replaced with a thoughtful stillness that made her pulse quicken. Sit, he said gently, gesturing toward the living room sofa. The word was not a command this time. It was a request wrapped in concern. Mia sat, folding her hands in her lap, unsure whether she was bracing herself for bad news or waiting for something she could not quite define. Adrian stood for a moment, as if searching for the right approach, then slowly took the seat across from her. There is something you need to understand, he began, his voice steady but quieter than usual. This attack on you is not random. It is strategic. Someone wants to undermine both of us, and you were the easiest angle to strike. Mia swallowed hard. Because I am the outsider. Adrian met her gaze directly. No, because they think you are vulnerable. They think you do not matter. And that is exactly why I will not let them succeed. The intensity in his eyes made her breath catch in her throat. She had seen Adrian angry, cold, calculating, even distant, but this version of him, controlled yet fiercely protective, felt entirely new. She looked down. I do not want to complicate things for you. I know the contract was supposed to be simple. Adrian leaned back slightly, exhaling. It was, he admitted. But simple does not always mean right. His words lingered between them, warm enough to blur the edges of the arrangement they had both signed. Mia hesitated before asking, Can I ask why you chose this? Why you needed a marriage at all? Adrian's gaze shifted toward the window, his expression caught somewhere between memory and regret. My board was preparing to vote on a merger that could jeopardize the entire company. Some members believed I was too unstable after what happened last year, especially after my engagement ended. Mia's chest tightened. She had heard rumors, but she did not know the truth. You were engaged? He nodded once. She left. Publicly. Dramatically. Accused me of being emotionally vacant, impossible to love, obsessed with control. The scandal shook the board's confidence. They needed reassurance that I could present a stable public image. He turned back to her, his eyes reflecting a truth he rarely shared. A temporary marriage would settle that. No emotional risk. No complications. Or so I thought. Mia felt her breath hitch at the implication, her heartbeat stumbling for a moment. She forced herself to speak softly. You did not choose me because I was convenient, did you? Adrian studied her carefully. I chose you, he said. Because you were genuine. Because you did not want anything from me. Because you reminded me that not everyone in my world wears a mask. The room felt suddenly warmer, as if the city lights outside had shifted and spilled into the air around them. Mia's pulse throbbed in her ears. She had not expected honesty from him, not like this. Not in the raw way that stripped his walls bare. I never meant for my life to intersect with yours, she whispered. I did not think someone like me could be a part of your world. Adrian leaned forward slightly. You are part of it now, he said quietly. And I will not allow anyone to tear you down. Before she could respond, Adrian's phone buzzed sharply on the table. He glanced at the screen, and his expression hardened. It is Marcus, he said. He has the full report. Mia watched the shift happen, his posture straightening, his jaw tightening. But something remained from their conversation, something softer that had not existed between them before. Come with me, he said, standing. You deserve to know everything. As they walked toward his office, shoulder to shoulder, Mia realized with startling clarity that whatever their marriage had begun as, it was changing in ways neither of them had expected, and the closer they moved to the truth, the more the lines between contract and connection threatened to disappear entirely. Marcus was already waiting in Adrian's office when they arrived, standing rigidly near the desk with a folder in his hands. The tension in the room was palpable, the kind that wrapped around Mia's ribs and made it hard to breathe. Adrian motioned for her to take a seat, but she chose to stand beside him instead, her shoulder inches from his, as if moving even slightly away would make her feel small again. Marcus cleared his throat. We completed the full trace, sir. The leaked article and the photos were prepared inside the company network over the last 48 hours. Adrian's voice was sharp with impatience. By whom? Marcus opened the folder and revealed printed screenshots of email threads, system logs, and internal messages. The assistant executed the upload, but the orders came directly from Chief Financial Officer Evelyn Hale. Mia felt her stomach drop, not because she was surprised, but because seeing her name in bold black ink under the word target made everything feel dangerously real. Adrian's jaw tightened, and the air in the room grew colder. Show me. Marcus placed the documents on the desk. One message in particular caught Mia's eye. Evelyn had written, discrediting the girl discredits him. We create doubt. Doubt weakens him. Once he is unstable again, the board will listen. Mia's pulse hammered in her ears. As she whispered, she is doing this to get control of the company. Marcus nodded. And she is willing to use you as collateral damage. Adrian let out a slow, furious breath, the kind that came from a lifetime of being betrayed by the people closest to him. She underestimated me, he said. And she underestimated my wife. The word wife hung between them, warmer than she expected, steadier than she deserved. Marcus continued. There is more. Evelyn has been contacting minority board members behind your back, trying to gather support for a no-confidence vote. Adrian's expression darkened further. She wants to remove me. Yes, sir. Mia watched Adrian absorb the information with the kind of composure only someone accustomed to battles could possess. But beneath that calm, she sensed a storm building. For the first time, she understood the true scale of the world he lived in. Power was not an asset here. It was ammunition, and everyone wanted a piece of it. What do you want to do next, sir? Marcus asked. Adrian looked at Mia before answering, and the moment his eyes met hers, something shifted. He was no longer making a decision alone. We respond publicly, Adrian said. A controlled statement from both of us. We expose the leak for what it is. Mia blinked. A statement from me? Yes, Adrian replied. You will stand beside me. You have nothing to hide. The idea terrified her. I do not know how to speak to the press. I do not know what to say. Adrian stepped closer, lowering his voice to something steady and reassuring. You speak the truth, Mia. That is more powerful than anything Evelyn can fabricate. She felt warmth bloom in her chest at his confidence, but also fear. She had lived her entire life avoiding attention, and now she was expected to face cameras, reporters, and flashing lights as if she belonged in that world. We can practice, Adrian said. Tonight. Before we release anything. Marcus gave a respectful nod and excused himself. When the door clicked shut, Adrian turned fully toward her, his expression free of the ice he wore in public. I am sorry you have been dragged into this, he said quietly. I brought you into my world thinking I could shield you from its ugliness. That was naive. Mia shook her head. You protected me when you could have. Distanced yourself. You defended me when you did not have to. That is more than most people would do. Adrian studied her, his eyes searching her face as if seeing her differently now. You deserve better than this chaos. Maybe, she said softly, but I am here. And I am not running. Adrian's breath hitched almost imperceptibly, a subtle break in his armor. Then we fight this together. For the first time since the contract began, Mia felt something solid beneath her fear, partnership. And as Adrian walked her out of the office, the city lights outside glowed like embers waiting to ignite, signaling that the real battle, and the real shift between them, was only just beginning. The drive back to the penthouse felt heavier than the sky outside, which had turned a deep shade of twilight. The world beyond the windows moved in streaks of color while Mia sat in silence, rehearsing the truth in her mind, wondering how a woman like her was expected to stand in front of cameras and defend herself against a lie loud enough to echo through an entire corporation. Adrian sat beside her, scrolling through messages from the communications team, issuing directives with a precision that made it clear he had gone into full crisis management mode. Yet every few minutes, his gaze drifted toward her, as if checking she was still holding together. When they arrived, Angela greeted them at the door, but Adrian raised a hand gently. No disturbances tonight, he said. We will be working. Angela nodded and disappeared down the hall. Inside the living room, the city glittered like a field of stars spread across the desert floor, and for a moment Mia wondered how this skyline could look so peaceful when her world was on fire. Adrian placed his phone on the table and motioned for her to sit across from him. We will walk through the statement, he said. Nothing scripted. Just the truth. The press responds better to sincerity than perfect lines. Mia clasped her hands together, trying to steady them. I do not know if my truth is enough for people who already think I am something I am not. Adrian shook his head slightly. Your truth is more than enough. You survived things most people in that boardroom could not even imagine. Do not underestimate the strength that got you here. His voice held no coldness. Now, it was warm in a way that reached into the spaces she tried to hide. Taking a breath, Mia repeated softly. I married you because my mother needed help. I did not ask for anything more. I did not want anything more. Good, Adrian said, nodding. Now say it again. With conviction. She did, louder this time, and he watched her closely, as if memorizing the sound of her honesty. For nearly an hour, they practiced her responses. Not perfect answers, but sincere ones. He corrected her only when she doubted herself, not when she stumbled. At one point, while she repeated a line, her voice cracked unexpectedly. Adrian leaned forward, his tone gentler than she had ever heard. Mia, look at me. She lifted her gaze. You are not the villain in this story, he said. Evelyn wants you to believe you are weak. But weakness does not walk into fire. You are still standing. That is strength. The words hit her deeper than she expected, stirring emotions she had kept buried for years. Before she could respond, Adrian's phone buzzed again. He checked the screen, his eyes narrowing slightly. The board is requesting a private meeting tomorrow, he said. They want an explanation. Mia felt panic rise in her chest. Do they think you were irresponsible for marrying me? Some of them, Adrian admitted. But they will not say it outright. They will ask questions, pretend concern, push you indirectly to see if you crack. And if I do? Adrian stepped closer, the air between them tightening. You will not. The certainty in his tone steadied her trembling breath. But I will also be there, he added. No one will speak to you without going through me first. His nearness made her heartbeat stutter, and she forced herself to look away before she drowned in the warmth of his certainty. They took a short break, and Mia walked to the enormous windows, watching the cars move like a river of light far below. For the first time, she wondered what her life would have been like if she had not answered his message that morning at the courthouse. She heard footsteps behind her, soft but sure. Adrian. He stood beside her, looking out over the city. I built all of this, he said quietly. The tower, the company, the reputation. And still, someone like Evelyn can shake it with a single rumor. Because people want to believe the worst, Mia said softly. It is easier than believing the truth. He turned toward her, studying her profile against the glow of the city. You speak like someone who has lived through that. She nodded slightly. People have always made assumptions about me. Being poor means everyone thinks they know who you are before you speak. Adrian's jaw tightened. Then tomorrow we show them they do not. The room felt smaller suddenly, warmer, charged with something unspoken but undeniable. Mia turned to face him fully, and for a moment the world held its breath. Adrian exhaled slowly. Get some rest, he said, though his voice held a quiet reluctance. Tomorrow will be difficult, but we will face it together. As Mia walked toward her room, she realized something had changed irrevocably. They were no longer two strangers bound by a piece of paper. They were two people caught in the same storm, holding on to each other without knowing when they had started. And tomorrow, the world would see it too. The boardroom at Hale Tower was colder than usual the next morning, the kind of cold that settled in the walls and made the air feel tense before a single word was spoken. Mia walked beside Adrian as they entered, her pulse quickening when she saw the long table filled with executives, each one wearing the sharp suits and sharper expressions of people who believed they understood power. Adrian's hand brushed lightly against the small of her back, steadying her without drawing attention, and for one brief moment, she felt anchored. The board members rose politely, though their eyes held more suspicion than respect. Evelyn sat near the head of the table, her posture perfect, her smile polished, her gaze gleaming with the confidence of someone who thought the game had already been won. Adrian took his seat, and Mia sat beside him, folding her hands tightly to hide the tremble in her fingers. The chairman cleared his throat. Adrian, thank you for meeting with us. Recent news regarding your marriage has raised concerns among shareholders. Evelyn quickly added, we simply want to ensure the company's reputation remains stable. Her eyes flicked to Mia with a practiced sweetness that made Mia's stomach tighten. Adrian leaned back in his chair, his expression calm, composed. My marriage is not a threat to this company. What is a threat is the spread of misinformation coming from within this building. The room shifted. Several executives exchanged glances. Evelyn's smile stiffened. Are you suggesting sabotage? I am not suggesting, Adrian said evenly. I am stating it. Marcus stepped forward from the wall where he had been standing silently. Evidence collected from our internal network proves that the defamatory article originated from the office of Chief Financial Officer Evelyn Hale's assistant. The order to create and distribute the content came directly from her. A ripple of shock moved across the room. Evelyn's mask cracked for a fraction of a second before she regained it. This is ridiculous. Anyone could have accessed my office. You cannot pin this on me without. We have your emails, Marcus said. He placed a tablet in front of her. Evelyn stared at the screen, her jaw tightening as the reality of her exposed messages settled into the room like poison. The chairman turned to her, his face pale. Evelyn, is this true? She opened her mouth to respond, but Adrian cut in, his voice low and unforgiving. She orchestrated the attack on my wife to destabilize my position, undermine the company's leadership, and influence a vote she intended to force. Mia felt heat rush to her face as whispers surged through the room. It was surreal hearing someone describe her as part of an attempted corporate overthrow. Evelyn's eyes snapped to Mia, full of resentment. You have no idea what you have stepped into. Women like you are not meant to be in this world. The cruelty in her tone sliced like a blade. Before Mia could respond, Adrian stood, his chair scraping softly. Women like her, he said coldly, are honest, loyal, and do not use deceit to climb their way into power they did not earn. The boardroom fell silent. Evelyn looked at the chairman in desperation. You cannot believe them. This is a manipulation tactic. It is enough, the chairman said firmly. Effective immediately, you are suspended pending a full investigation. Evelyn rose abruptly, fury burning in her eyes as she glared at both Adrian and Mia. This is not over, she hissed before storming out, the door slamming behind her. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the chairman turned to Mia. "Mrs. Hale," he said, softening his tone, "we apologize for what you have been subjected to. This behavior is unacceptable." Mia nodded gently, still stunned that people of such high status were addressing her with genuine respect. Adrian placed a reassuring hand on the table, close enough for her to feel the warmth radiating from his skin. The chairman continued, "We are satisfied with the clarity you both provided. The company stands with you." As the meeting adjourned, the executives filed out with a newfound understanding of who Mia truly was. Not a liability, but a woman who had become a target because of her connection to a man many envied. When the room was finally empty, Mia exhaled a trembling breath. "I did not expect them to listen," she whispered. Adrian looked at her, surprise softening his features. "You spoke with honesty and strength. People recognized that." "I was terrified." "Courage is not the absence of fear," he said quietly. "It is standing in spite of it." She felt her chest tighten at his words. They walked toward the elevator together, and for the first time, she did not feel like she was walking beside a stranger or a temporary husband. She felt like she was walking beside someone who saw her clearly, someone who understood her in ways she had not expected. And when the elevator doors closed with a soft hum, the look he gave her lingered long after, carrying a truth neither of them were ready to speak aloud, but both could feel unmistakably. Either ride back to the penthouse after the board's decision felt different from every other moment Mia had spent beside Adrian. The air between them carried a quiet electricity, the kind that came after surviving something dangerous together, the kind that made her heartbeat stumble every time their shoulders brushed in the back seat of the SUV. Adrian had removed his tie, loosening the top button of his shirt, a rare sign that the day had drained even him. Yet when he glanced at her, there was something gentle in his expression, something that made her feel seen in a way she had not expected from a man who built his world on walls. When they stepped into the penthouse, the sunset spilled gold across the marble floors, turning the space softer, warmer. Mia exhaled shakily, letting her fingers brush the cool surface of the kitchen counter as she steadied herself. "I still cannot believe what happened today," she murmured. "I thought they would tear me apart." Adrian set his phone down and moved closer, stopping only when he was a few feet away. "You held your ground," he said. "They respected that." "I was terrified," Mia admitted. "My voice almost broke." Adrian shook his head slightly. "Fear does not diminish the truth. And you spoke the truth with more grace than most people in that room could manage." Her cheeks warmed at the softness in his tone. "Thank you," she whispered. Adrian hesitated, his gaze flickering to her lips for a fraction of a second before he looked away abruptly, as if catching himself. "There is something else we need to address," he said, his voice returning to its controlled calm. "The press expects a statement after what happened. We cannot wait too long, or Evelyn will use that silence against us." Mia nodded, though her stomach twisted nervously. "What do we say?" Adrian walked to the dining table, motioning for her to follow. "The truth," he repeated, "that our marriage was private, personal, and no one has the right to weaponize it for power." She sat across from him, their knees almost touching beneath the table. For a moment, he simply looked at her, studying the quiet determination in her eyes. "You know," Adrian said softly, "I underestimated you." Mia blinked. "What do you mean?" "You stepped into a hostile room today," he replied, "and you did not shrink. You did not try to become someone else. You stayed yourself. People in my world do not know how to do that." The compliment stunned her. She had spent her whole life believing she had nothing to offer in rooms like that. "I did it because you were beside me," she said before she could stop herself. The admission made her heart jump. Adrian's eyes softened. "I did not stand beside you out of obligation," he said quietly. "I stood beside you because you deserve to be defended." Her breath caught. The air between them tightened again, charged with something unspoken but undeniably present. Before either of them could say more, Adrian's phone buzzed sharply. He glanced down. "It is my head of communications." They drafted a statement. He read silently for a moment, then set the phone aside. "No," he said simply. "This sounds manufactured. It does not reflect what happened." Mia hesitated. "What do you want to say?" Adrian leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees. "I want people to understand that you are not some opportunistic stranger who stumbled into my life. I want them to understand that you have integrity, strength, and dignity that no amount of gossip can touch. Mia felt her heart swell with an emotion she could not define. I do not need the world to see me that way, she whispered. I just need you to. Adrian stilled. The room felt suspended. Then, slowly, he said, I do. The words landed with a force that made her breath shudder. He cleared his throat, breaking the moment before it deepened into something neither of them was ready for. Let us take a break, he said gently. You have had a long day. Mia nodded, rising from the table. But before she could step away, Adrian called her name. She turned. He stood there, hands in his pockets, eyes steady and sincere. Mia, he said softly, I meant everything I said today. You are not alone in this. She felt warmth flood her chest. I know, she whispered. When she walked toward her room, she sensed his gaze linger long after she turned the corner, as if he was holding on to something he was finally beginning to understand. And for the first time since the contract began, Mia realized that the temporary lines they had drawn around their marriage were beginning to blur, not because they planned it, but because something real was quietly taking root between them, growing stronger with every storm they faced side by side. The next morning began with a softness that did not match the whirlwind inside Mia's chest. Sunlight filtered through the curtains in her room at the penthouse, warm and gentle, almost peaceful, but her thoughts were anything but calm. She replayed Adrian's words from the night before over and over, the quiet sincerity in his voice when he told her she was not alone, the warmth in his eyes when he said he saw her for who she truly was. Those words had settled deep inside her, steadying her heartbeat in ways she was still trying to understand. When she stepped into the kitchen, Adrian was already there, leaning over the counter with a mug of coffee in hand. He looked up the moment he sensed her, his expression softening, in a way that sent a flutter through her stomach. Good morning, he said, his tone lower, gentler. Did you sleep at all? A little, she admitted. I kept thinking about what we need to do today. Adrian nodded. The press statement is scheduled for 3 o'clock. We will have a brief interview afterward. Nothing invasive. Mia inhaled slowly. And you are sure this is the right choice? Adrian walked toward her, stopping just close enough that she felt the warmth of his presence. I am sure that facing this together is the right choice, he said. You are not hiding. You are not apologizing for a lie someone else created. She nodded, feeling steadier. After breakfast, they reviewed the final statement. Adrian insisted on reading it aloud with her, making adjustments that made it sound less corporate and more real. When she hesitated over a sentence, he moved closer, guiding her with patience she had not thought possible from a man known for his ruthlessness in the business world. Hours passed quickly, and soon they were riding down the elevator toward the media room set up on the 27th floor. Mia's hands trembled slightly, but Adrian reached out and gently touched her wrist, grounding her. You are ready, he said. Just breathe. When they entered the room, cameras lined the back wall, reporters murmured quietly, and bright lights illuminated the podium set up in front of a Hale Dynamics backdrop. Mia felt her chest constrict, but Adrian stepped ahead of her, placing a hand at the small of her back in a way that was subtle but unmistakably protective. A communications manager handed them the final notes, but Adrian barely glanced at them. Follow my lead, he whispered. The press conference began with predictable questions about the article, the company's stability, and the accusations against Evelyn. Adrian answered the first few with calm, controlled clarity, then stepped aside slightly, allowing Mia to speak. For a heartbeat, she froze. But then she looked at Adrian, who gave her the smallest nod, and something inside her steadied. My name is Mia Hale, she began, her voice soft but unshaken. I did not marry Adrian for money or status. I married him because I needed help during the most desperate moment of my life. He offered that help without expecting anything in return. I never intended to become a public figure, and I never imagined that my past would be used against me to harm him. The room fell silent. Even the cameras seemed to ease their mechanical clicking. Mia continued, I may not come from a world of power or wealth, but I know who I am. And I know the truth. I will not apologize for the life I came from or for accepting kindness when I needed it most. Adrian stepped closer, his voice steady as he added, My wife is not the problem. The problem is the corruption of those who tried to weaponize her vulnerability. The reporters erupted with questions, but Adrian's hand found Mia's, giving it a reassuring squeeze before guiding her out of the room. As soon as the elevator doors closed behind them, Mia let out a trembling breath she did not realize she had been holding. "I cannot believe I actually said all of that," she whispered. "You were extraordinary," Adrian said. "You stood there with more courage than most people who speak to the press for a living." She felt her cheeks warm. "I only managed it because you were there." Adrian's gaze held hers, something unspoken passing between them. "I was there," he murmured, "because I wanted to be." The elevator reached their floor, but neither of them moved at first. The moment felt suspended, delicate, charged. Finally, Mia stepped out, her heartbeat still racing. Adrian followed her, his steps slow, thoughtful. When they returned to the penthouse, Angela greeted them with a smile. "The statement is everywhere," she said. "People are praising Mrs. Hale for her honesty." Mia blinked in surprise. Adrian looked at her with a small, proud smile. "The truth has a way of revealing itself," he said softly, "especially when spoken by the right person." Mia felt something warm bloom in her chest, something she had been trying to ignore but could no longer push away. As the evening light poured through the windows, bathing the penthouse in a golden glow, she realized that the contract binding them had changed. It was no longer about obligation or convenience. It was about something deeper, something growing quietly between them, gaining strength with every battle they faced together. And neither of them could deny it any longer. The rest of the day passed in a blur of notifications, articles, and messages from people Mia had never met, praising her sincerity, and calling the press conference one of the most honest moments in Hale Dynamics history. But even with the sudden shift in public opinion, Mia felt strangely quiet inside, as if her heart was still catching up to everything that had happened. As evening settled over the penthouse, the city outside glowed with a warm desert dusk, casting long amber streaks across the floor. Mia stood near the window, watching the lights flicker on below like sparks forming a constellation, when she heard Adrian's footsteps approach. He stopped beside her, his reflection joining hers in the glass. "The board has withdrawn their concerns," he said softly. "Shareholders are responding well, and Evelyn's suspension is being escalated to a full termination." Mia exhaled slowly. "So it is over." Adrian's voice held a note she had never heard before, something almost hesitant. "At least this part," he said. She turned to look at him, studying the quiet tension in his jaw, the unspoken weight in his eyes. "What happens next?" she asked. Adrian reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small envelope, worn at the edges, as if it had been carried for days. "I need to tell you something," he said. "Something I did not know how to say before." Her breath caught. He unfolded a printed report and handed it to her. "This is from the hospital," he explained. "It is from the day your mother was admitted." Mia frowned in confusion until she saw the second document beneath it, an old emergency room form. Years old. Her eyes scanned the page, and her breath hitched sharply when she reached the name listed under patient caregiver on arrival. Mia Turner. "This was when I found a girl on the floor of the emergency room," Adrian said quietly. "She fainted after working a double shift. She had been helping my sister, who had collapsed from dehydration during her first year of medical school. That girl was you." Mia felt the ground sway beneath her feet. Her mind raced back to that night. The exhaustion, the fluorescent lights, the carousel of patients, and the memory of helping a young woman who kept apologizing through tears. "I did not know," Mia whispered, her voice trembling. "I did not know she was your sister." "You did not. And that is the point," Adrian said. "You helped her without knowing who she was. You stayed with her long after your shift ended. You refused to leave her alone. You saved her from complications that could have been far worse." His voice softened. "I remembered her describing a girl with tired eyes and a kind smile. When I saw you at the courthouse, something told me I had met you before. I confirmed it on the 7th day after our marriage was filed." Mia covered her mouth, overwhelmed. "Why did you not tell me?" "Because I did not want you to think I married you out of obligation," he confessed. "At first, I convinced myself the contract was for convenience. But the truth is," his voice faltered for the first time since she had known him. "The truth is, I chose you because kindness like yours is rare. And once I realized who you were, I understood that choosing you was the smartest decision I had made in years." Mia felt tears well in her eyes. "Adrian, I told myself I would let you go after 7 days," he continued. that it would be unfair to keep you in a world that hurt you. But every day with you made letting go impossible. He reached into his pocket again, pulling out the small velvet box she had seen tucked in his drawer earlier. Her heartbeat stumbled as he opened it. Inside was not the diamond ring she expected from a man of his wealth, but a simple gold band with a pressed, preserved slip of paper folded beneath it. The $10 bill. The one she had given him the morning she thought he was a stranger in need. The bill was worn, a little faded, but carefully saved. You gave this to a man you did not know, Adrian said. The last money you had. You changed my life before you even knew my name. He dropped to one knee. Mia gasped, her hand flying to her chest. This time, Adrian said, his voice steady and full of emotion. I am not asking for a contract. I am asking for a future. A real one. Will you stay? Not because you are trapped, not because you are desperate, but because you want to. Tears spilled freely down Mia's cheeks as she nodded, her voice cracking with relief and truth. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I want to stay. Adrian slid the ring onto her finger, their first real promise. Unbound by rules or desperation. He rose, pulling her gently into his arms. She sank against him, feeling his heartbeat against hers, steady and sure. Outside the window, the desert city glowed brighter, as if celebrating their quiet victory. And as they stood together in the golden light of their new beginning, Mia realized the contract that once bound them had dissolved completely, replaced by something stronger than obligation, stronger than fear, stronger than circumstance. It was love, the kind born not from power or fortune, but from truth, resilience, and a kindness that had changed both of their lives forever.